podcast. It is May 1st, 1st of May. I hope you guys are being good. Hope Lyft and Uber being good to you guys. Hope you guys are making money. For a lot of people, this is the best time of the year to make money, including myself. My market's hot right now. It might not stay that way. And we're going to cover some topics that will illuminate why I feel that way. I am going to show you how much money I made in March. I am going to show you how much other drivers made last week using a tool that you need to have on your tool belt if you're doing Uber and Lyft. We have a bunch of different things I want to discuss. And where should I start? Where do I want to start? Let's see. Okay, I'm going to monologue a little bit here before we jump into anything. Oh yeah, I'm also going to talk about this insane challenges that Lyft has been giving to me, and I'm gonna actually try one of them this weekend. Well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to make something very clear. I believe that the economy is part of rideshare, and that rideshare is part of the economy. One of the things that I've been disappointed with when I'm looking around at all the other content creators or all the other drivers and all these Facebook groups, I don't think we're doing a good job of like mapping how decisions that are being made outside of our households are impacting or will impact rideshare, right? And I know in order to talk about these things, it has to get political, but I think it's important, especially as people who have their finances tied to external decisions, that we do have these conversations, right? Whether you voted for this person or you voted for that person, having conversations about cause and effect is important. And that's something that I'm always gonna do. I might get pushback for it, but it's something I always have done and will continue to do. It's just that now we're in a very divisive time point in politics that it's talking about these things carry more weight, but I'm committed to talking about these things in a way that is focused on how it will impact rideshare drivers. I'm not here to make one person feel less than or more than because they voted this way or that way. That's not what it's about. It's about analyzing what's happening in the White House and how it impacts our pockets so that we can better plan for our future. That is my goal. And so, because I don't feel like there are enough people out there doing, enough content creators or drivers like having these conversations, like how will tariffs affect drivers? How will this decision affect drivers? We're going to be doing that here. Now, because I know it's such a divisive like conversation for so many people, I'm going to be putting that mostly on the back half of the podcast towards the end. So you can get your updates from me. And if it gets too political for you, you can go. But some of these topics are like impossible to even discuss like without politics in it. So some of them will bleed in, bleed out. And you'll see what I mean in a bit. But before we get into the news, I guess we can talk about, let's go through how much money I made in March. We'll do that first. Right? January, February, March, April. April. How much money I made in April. We'll do that first. So this is the spreadsheet I made that I used to track my mileage and my income. It breaks down all of my numbers for me. But because I'm constantly like accused of lying or making things up, and truth be told, anyone can put numbers in here, right? Anyone can do that. So what I like to do first is I like to actually show you directly from the app what's going on. So this is the Lyft app. It's being routed directly through my phone, right? I can scroll up and down. It's not a Photoshop. And my income. So this bit over here, $694 is part of April. So you add that $694 to this $4,925. That gives me $5,000 and change, right? Which over here it's $5,995, and that's also because I have my Uber income included here. So we can let's take a look for a second. So week 1, I made $694 with Lyft. Week 2, $1,534. Week 3, $1,659. Week 4, $1,213. And week 5, which is currently this week, which is technically not the end of the Lyft week, but the end of the calendar week, I've made $518. Pretty good. And I say pretty good because I've only been driving on weekends. I have become a weekend warrior. I'm not gonna lie, the closer I get to becoming debt free, and the longer I've been a rideshare driver, is the less I want to be a rideshare driver. I'm so done with Uber and Lyft, and as you can see, the money can be good. It's just not what I want to be doing with my life. But there you can see, clearly mostly just driving on weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. $1,200 just for those 3 days. Again here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a little bit on Monday, $1,600. So it's been good. It has been good. And I have other things going on personally. I'm about to have a baby. Well, not me, my wife. And so there's been events and things like that that have come up that I've had to give my attention. And so I haven't been able to dedicate all my time to driving. And even when baby girl gets here, it's nice to know that I can make a solid chunk of money focusing on weekends. But there's the proof. So let's jump on over to my spreadsheet. And if you want access to the spreadsheet, you can get it too. It's in the description. I think it's the first link that's down there. So back to the spreadsheet, I'll quickly explain what's happening here for anyone who's interested. So the best mileage tracker that I found that I'm consistent with is one where I'm putting in the mileage myself. I've tried those other trackers and having to review all of your personal or business mileage, and it was too much. It was never accurate, and I never remembered to do it. And when I remembered to do it, it was too much. And then no. So before I start my shift, I put my mileage in. I go to where I'm going to start driving. I put my mileage in again. Then when I'm done driving for the day, I put my mileage in, and then I drive back home and I put my mileage in. That's how I track it. That's how you're supposed to track it according to the IRS. They want to know what's personal and what's business, especially if you're using a car that has business purposes and personal purposes. If you're just using your car and it's only for business, then you don't have to separate the different types, but they're going to want to see if you have a second car that is for personal or that is for business. So keep that in mind. But here it is, all of the proof. I live about 20 miles from where I like to start, so I do rack up quite a bit personal. Up here in the top, above the mileage, you can see my starting mileage for the month was 118,000. My ending mileage was 120,000. My business mileage was 1,752. My personal mileage was 703. So pretty good. My total income for the month, not including the cash, I didn't put the cash on here, was $5,945. Sorry, misspoke. $5,995.45. I drove a total of 125 hours and 5 minutes, which comes out to $47.93 per hour. It's pretty good. My mileage was 1,752. My per mile income, this is gross, not including expenses, is $3.42. Now, what I like about this tracker that I made, so of course I'm going to like it, is that it also tracks my expenses. My expenses was $333.22, and I'll show you the breakdown for that in a second. My expenses per hour, which a lot of people have no idea what their expenses per hour are, for them to subtract it from their expenses, their gross expenses. So I'm happy this tracker has it. Is $2.66. That works out to per mile 19 cents in expenses per mile driven. Now, I made this tracker because I got tired of people coming into my comments saying, after you subtract all of your expenses, you make less than minimum wage. That could be true for you, but that is not true for me. And this tracker shows it. So let's zoom out a little bit here and look at the expenses. my gas expense total for the month, $171.39. That's a per hour expense of $1.37. Car wash is $20, 16 cents. Insurance, $141.83. It's just $1.13 per hour. So like this is it. These are my only expenses right now. Because my car is paid off. I know you're probably looking for my car payment, but my car is paid off. I just have my monthly car wash subscription and my insurance. I didn't have to get an oil change this month. And when I do get them, I do them myself. So it's very cheap. But I'm not driving a lot of mileage these days. I figured out new strategies that has increased my earnings per mile. And we'll touch a little bit on that in a second. But my per mile gross income is $3.42. So what does that look like net? So on this side of the tracker, I have a section that gives me an estimate on my taxes. So my mileage write-off based off of how many miles I'm driving. And this is actually like supposed to be for 70 cents. I haven't updated it for this year. This is based off of last year's mileage write-off. My write-off is $1,173.84. So that brings my taxable income down to $4,821. I put 15% as the tax rate. It's just an estimate. So my estimated taxes is $723.24. So after you have my gross income, right? Let's go here. You have gross income, which is, where is it? So gross income of $5,995.45 subtracted by my tax burden of $723.24 brings my true hourly down to $39.49. So after everything is said and done, my income, and then you subtract my expenses, and you subtract my taxes. My per hour income, this is what I'm coming home with in my pocket. My true hourly is $39.49. I think that's pretty good. I have a 2013 Toyota Prius V. I paid $12,000 for it. Very cheap car. And I'm able to make $40 per hour in my market. Now, the next thing that is commonly complained about by my viewers is that it's my market, not me. So in order to combat that, the idea that it's my market and nothing that Tristan is doing to find success in his market, I like to use this app called the Solo app. You can get it below. And it shows you how much other drivers in my market, my same exact market, are averaging. I'm trying to find it. Okay. So this is from last week. You can see it right here. I wish I could zoom in more on this. The Charleston average from my market is $22.68. $22.68. Last week, Tristan Thomas, made $43.87 per hour. That's almost double. I'm making almost double what other drivers are making in my market. Now, I want to be clear. Does your market matter? Yes. But you know what matters more than your market? You. Right? Especially if you're looking at this app and this app is showing you, hey, here's what other drivers in your market are making. You can then use that as a test to see where you stand. If you're making below what other drivers are making, you're the problem. If you're making the average, I would venture to say that there's probably something you can do to make more money. So it's very important that you know how much other drivers in your market are making before you open up your mouth and you say that my market is the problem. Something I do in my life, which has been very, very, very helpful, is I focus on the internals. I focus on what I have control over before I start to see what I can do about the externals. If you focus on what you have control over, you will find solutions faster than waiting for the external things to happen. So I apply that to almost everything that I do. I apply it to rideshare. Anytime Lyft makes a change or Uber makes a change, I'm on top of it. I'm playing with it to figure out how can I incorporate this into my plan in order to make more money. And I recently shared how Lyft's new point system has enabled me to increase my income. And I want to be clear, it's becoming harder to make the same amount of money I was making before. But because I'm constantly testing and retesting new ideas, I'm able to figure out ways that boost my income. So I was recently talking to a group of other drivers on Twitter/X. I don't know what we're calling it. I'm going to call it Twitter. And I want to play a recording of my contribution to that space. The space is called the Driver Coast to Coast app. Not app, but Drivers Coast to Coast. It's right here. And I was asked a question by one of the co-hosts, and I'm going to play it because I think there's some valuable information in there for you that I really want you guys to listen to.
Hey, while we're waiting on the people to tell us their rides of the week, Tristan and I have a couple questions
Slow it down.
for you.
Sure.
So I saw where you just absolutely just crushed everything over the past week. How did you do that screenshot that you put up? I don't remember exactly. I think it was the one where you'd done the 60, maybe 3 rides, but you only went 61 miles.
Okay. So this is what she's talking about. She's talking about hold on. She's talking about a night where I did 63 rides in one night. And my book miles was 151 miles. She misspoke there, and that's okay. So I did 63 rides, 150 miles over the course of 12 hours. And I made $764 that day. Part of that might have been part of the challenge. But this is my record right now. I've never done more than 63 rides. And doing this has enabled me to feel like the possibility of me doing 70 rides per day in order to achieve this crazy, insane ride challenge. I'm going to actually try it. This is the second time Lyft has offered me something insane like this. Last week they tried it and I was like, I'm good. I'm not going to focus in on that. But I'm confident that I can get it done. And I'm going to try. I'm going to make a video about it. So if you want to make sure you don't miss that video, make sure you like this video and that you subscribe. By liking this video, it makes YouTube know that you want to see more of my content, so that when I put my content out there, I'm going to take you guys along with me for the ride, and I'm going to show you everything that I do, all of the decisions. I'm going to record record the screen on my phone, and then talk you through how I'm making decisions in real time. So maybe you can learn something from it. But I think that would be a good video, whether I fail or pass, but hopefully I pass, right? But it's 120 rides over the course of the weekend. So 3 days, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You divide 3 days by 120 rides. The expectation is 70 rides per day. That's a lot of rides. And here, I'll talk a little bit about what my plan is. My plan is to actually not do the entire Lyft challenge, but to also incorporate Uber into this, because Uber gave me a really good bonus as well, or quest as they call it. This one's for 70 rides and it's for $280, right? So I can do 70 rides, get $280 from Uber, and then I can come over here and Lyft, and I can do just the first portion of it and get the $107 bonus for 140 rides. That will net me more money than doing just the Lyft challenge, even though I prefer doing Lyft. To me, 70 rides on Lyft feels easier than 70 rides on Uber because Lyft gives you more tools to get it done. But let's jump back over to the drivers coast to coast so we can finish up that interaction I had with them.
It said book miles 61.
Um, I'm just so with the new point system, right? You guys know that Lyft put out a new point system, but it's only in certain markets. Did you know about that?
I don't know. You're not talking about the points you buy things with, are you?
Yes, I am talking about
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have access to that. And
So for those of you who haven't seen that yet, let me show you what it looks like. So we're back on the Lyft app. Give me a second. I don't want you guys to see things you're not supposed to see. All right, so here it is. I guess I'm in the testing market for this, and in order to stay here, to stay like man, it's gonna be so much explaining. The short version is I'm allowed to have a lower acceptance rate than I was before, and I've been able to completely abuse that, as you're about to find out how in this conversation.
and under that system, I don't know how long this will last, but I'm allowed to decline rides without it affecting my score as long as I'm on a ride. It used to be like that in the past for everyone. At some point, they changed it so that if you're on an active ride, you receive a request for another ride. If you declined it, it would impact your numbers. And then with this new system, I don't know if it's on purpose, it doesn't impact my numbers. So I'm able to be a lot more picky and look for short rides. And then on top of that, I'm able to maintain elite status as long as I keep my acceptance rate over 50% with the new system. It's going to vary based off of different markets, but previously it was 80%. So under the previous system, I had to be more, I had to take what they gave me more often. And with this new system, I'm able to be a lot more ruthless and like focusing on very short rides.
That's big, Tristan. That's really big.
Yep. And that's phenomenal. And question for you, assuming you didn't have those filters in your market, because I've been really fascinated with the ride challenges that they offer you. I mean, you're hitting them, which is amazing. But I think that last one this week, have you been able to hit that one? It was, I think, was it 210? Was that
Yeah,
what it was?
it was 210.
So he's talking about the one I just mentioned where I got the same ride challenge a week before, and whether I did or didn't do it, we're about to find out.
Hit it if I worked it, but I decided not to. I have a baby on the way and a doctor's appointment on one of the mornings. I figured that I can max do 70 during specific times. We had a festival, college students are still here, and if I worked 18 hours each day, I could have done it. I probably could have done it like 15 to 18, but I honestly could have done it. But it just becomes a question of, do you want to do it? You know.
Well, that one particular one wasn't worth it just for the differences in the, it only added, I think, under $2 a mile, but you still crush the earnings though.
I see them a little different. I do get that per mile part of it where, it's really, it could just be an extra $1 per ride if it's a lot of rides. But I'm a little more focused on the daily income. And I also know that, sometimes ride challenges do encourage me to drive. And in the act of driving, I'm making more money than I wouldn't have before. But I understand what you're saying. I generally agree with you.
No, I get it. That's a great way to look at it. It really is.
Hey, Pat.
To clarify what I'm really talking about here is, in the rideshare world, we do this weird thing where we hyper focus on mileage, like earnings per mile and earnings per hour. Maybe not even as much earnings per hour. You can sit out there all day for 10 hours, take one ride for $10 that went 1 mile. That will equate to a day of $10 per mile. But in the entire day, you only made $10. That's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on, I have a very specific financial goal. I'm paying off debt. There's a number associated to that. And when I'm done with that goal, there's another goal of saving up a 6-month emergency fund. That's a specific number. And when I'm done with that, it's just going to keep snowballing that way. So it is faster for me to achieve those goals by focusing on how much money I make per day. Now, of course, you want to be as efficient as possible while you're trying to hit that goal. But, sorry, I distracted myself. You want to be as efficient as possible when you're trying to hit that goal. And I think that the best way to do it is kind of organize what your markers are. So for me, how much I'm making per day, how much I'm making per mile, how much I'm making per hour, right? I don't want to sacrifice the big goal just to have better looking goals below. And I think that a big part of it, why I'm not as attached to how much I make per mile, is because my car's paid off. I'm not like a lot of people have some attachments to their cars. I don't. I view my car as a thing that makes money. I have no love for my car. I mean, I enjoy it, of course, but I have no like. It's very common for people to say, "Oh, I don't want to put all those miles on my car." My car is a machine that converts miles to money. That's kind of how I look at it, right? But at the end of the day, how much money I make per day is just the most important metric that I have. Just to expand on that idea a little
Sit
more.
tight. We're going to come to you next, but I have one more question for Tristan that I sort of was teeing up there. My question to you is: in Charleston, I'm fascinated by this market because obviously it's a Lyft busy market and a lot of rides. There's certainly a lot of short rides available. What's the percentage that you've seen of rides that can keep you in that little bubble of busyness versus if you were running just naked with no filters, no area filter? How many would you say? Is it 50-50? Is it that keep you in that bubble, or is it strictly the filter that's doing that? Do you not know the percentage? Let's say of how many would take you on, let's say, a nature hike or out of the zone.
So first, I will say that I've been driving with both Uber and Lyft open, and I've stopped thinking it's a Lyft market. I actually think Uber is kind of better here, but they just don't have the tools for me to take advantage of it as much. But as far as like surge to surge, Uber has better surges. Like Lyft surge in my market is capped at like on average $10. I saw 15 this weekend for the first time in a long time. But on Uber, it can get up to 30. It's just that it's harder to find shorter trips that keep you in the zone. With
Yeah.
Lyft,
Sorry, go ahead.
so to answer whether
So the tools specifically that I'm referring to here is to stay within an area filter on Lyft that you can set a radius and you won't get rides that go out. And some of you are probably thinking, but Tristan, we have that on Uber. It's not the same. Depending on how your city's made up, you can go to certain regions. And if you live in a circular region, then sure, it might work for you. But that's not how it works here. You have Charleston, you have Mount Pleasant, you have West Ashley, and there can be 3 miles going across. You might want those rides, but you're not going to get it if you only pick one region. I don't know why Uber doesn't have the area filter the way Lyft does. Maybe they have a patent over it, but I would really love for Uber to get on board with that.
they're like the percentage of nature hikes versus short rides, I would say it differs time of day. If we're talking between like 5 p.m. till about maybe 7ish p.m., I can get people going 50-50. It feels 50-50. But once we're in that late night bar time frame, you have a lot of people going from one bar to another bar. Or what you'll have is the older folks who live close by, who are ready to go home at 10 p.m. There'll be some of those kind of shorter rides. Some of them can be mid range that would take me out of the area. So I would say it's maybe like 70% short rides, 30% can take you out. And then when the bars close down and everyone's going home at the same time, it can be 50-50. But most drivers, what I've realized, they focus on taking the quick rides first. And then at the end of the night, when there are no more quick rides to take, you're left with just nature hikes. And I usually take one of those to go home.
Okay, so I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. If you want to listen to this whole conversation, you can go and check out the Drivers Coast to Coast. I am going to copy the link and post it in chat right now. There it is. See it on the screen. Drivers Coast to Coast. They usually let any driver kind of come on and talk about whatever they want to talk about. They talk about the rides per day. They share whatever tips they're having. It's generally just a good space to be. And while you guys are over there, you might as well follow me. I love arguing and debating and things of that nature. So let's go over to my Twitter. I'm going to get my link. Follow me on Twitter. So I'll have those posted in the chats. Awesome. All right, so did good. All right, so let's jump into some of these topics that we're going to be talking about today. Uber Shuttle launching at Atlanta Airport. Uber is rolling out its airport shuttle service in Atlanta, marking the latest expansion of its Uber Shuttle program. So there's a couple other cities that already have this. Let me just quickly get you a rundown on where they are. What cities have Uber Shuttle already? it's not. What cities have Uber airport shuttle? So New York, JFK and LaGuardia, Chicago O'Hare, and next is Atlanta. I guess they just started with the big airports and they're working their way down. Starting next month, the company will begin transporting passengers to and from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport with regular, affordable service. The new service will offer multiple pickup and drop-off locations across downtown and midtown Atlanta, running every 30 minutes between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., 7 days a week. While specific pickup spots haven't been announced yet, Uber says details will be shared ahead of the May launch, and we're now in May. And the reason why I think this is important, a lot of you are probably thinking it's not important because you don't focus on airport runs, but that's not the totality way to look at this. Whether you're the kind of person to take airport runs or sit at the airport is irrelevant. Anything that can happen that decreases the amount of surge that exists in a city is bad for everyone. Well, great for the drivers. I mean, great for the passengers, bad for the drivers, great for Uber. Uber and Lyft are actively trying to get rid of surge. Not in a way that's like nefarious. They're just trying to overflow the market with more drivers or find ways to better satisfy the passengers so that surging doesn't happen. And anything that happens that puts less surge in the market should be seen as a pay decrease, whether it's directly affecting a group of people that you would normally take or not, right? If people are capable of if surges disappear, if 10% of the people aren't taking regular Uber and Lyft because they're taking these shuttles in the morning, it's going to affect that morning whether or not you go to the airport. I don't know how many other ways to say it. But there's some more details that are even more concerning, so we'll keep going. The new service will offer multiple pickup and drop-off locations across downtown and midtown Atlanta, running every 30 minutes between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., 7 days a week. While specific pickup spots haven't been announced yet, Uber says details will be shared ahead of the May launch. Riders can book up to 5 seats at a time, with reservations available up to 1 week in advance. As with other Uber services, customers will be able to track their shuttle in real time using the Uber app. From a technology standpoint, that's pretty cool. Pricing is set to be straightforward and surge-free. So an incentive right now that if you're watching this and you want to use a shuttle instead of ordering an Uber or Lyft, you will 100% avoid a surge fee if you do the shuttle. For passengers, that's pretty good. Why? The incentive here is that, sure, it's not as convenient as someone picking you up from your door, but you could just take an Uber to an Uber shuttle and then the shuttle to the airport. It's an extra step, but it's going to save you money if that's something you're concerned about. And it's probably going to be a little more consistent. Ooh, and Uber gets to cut out the driver in that scenario. So Uber pockets that money for themselves. Like, Uber drivers are competing with Uber. That's not a good setup. You don't want to compete with the platform that gives you rides. That's a conflict of interest. Early riders can take advantage of a special $10 fare, with prices eventually rising but capped at $18.50 per trip. That's not even per person. That's per trip. $20 to go to the Atlanta airport. That's not bad. It's not bad. Uber Shuttle has been operating successfully in New York City, offering rides to LaGuardia and JFK airports. The Atlanta expansion reflects Uber's continued push to provide convenient, low-cost alternative to solo airport rides. We got a video. Let's check out the video. Oof.
अपने स्ट्रगल के टाइम पे ना बस के अंदर घुसने से बाहर निकलने तक मालूम नहीं क्या ऊबर पे सीट बुकिंग क्या ऐश का जमाना है अपने स्ट्रगल के टाइम पे ना बस के अंदर घुसने से बाहर निकलने तक मालूम नहीं कि हाथ सलामत या पैर सलामत सीट पकड़ने के चक्कर में धक्कम धुक्की थावा धूबी उससे अपन सॉलिड बनाए मालूम है
अभी नहीं चाहिए आपको धक्का मुक्की आबादूबी
स्ट्रगल का जमाना गया बड़ा ऐश का जमाना है गुड़गांव आए ना तो उठाना
I feel like I just wasted my time watching this. Not because it's not in English, which it should have been in English. That, you know, most of the people that are going to take this are probably going to be. I'm not going to get into that. But I don't really. It was like an ad without a point. They could have done better than that. But yeah, there you go. This is something to be aware of. I think that one of the more disappointing things that happens when I'm having conversations like this with other drivers is that they're like, oh, this specific thing isn't going to have a big impact on what I do. And what they don't realize is that Uber and Lyft, we suffer from like deaths by 1,000 cuts. It's a bunch of small things that make it harder to make money with Uber and Lyft. It's typically not just one big thing, which you're going to see as a recurring theme as we continue to go through these articles. So the next story we're going to cover is Lyft's AI earnings assistant. It's supposed to help us figure out how to make more money. And I do, listen. There are times where Lyft has an idea and I'm skeptical. Despite how skeptical I am, I always give it a shot. Most times it's just a way for them to cut our pay. Sometimes it's really good things like to stay within the area filter, even priority mode. I think positively of priority mode. I'm going to make a video about that. People are going to they're going to think like I'm a shill because they haven't tried it themselves. But there are times where we're using priority mode will make you more money than not using it. And it sounds counterintuitive. Yes, I know. You're just going to have to like and subscribe to make sure you see that video when I drop it. But this, I can't see how this is bad. Now, will it work? Who knows? To be determined. But I don't see how Lyft trying to give us more information is going to result in us making less money. So Lyft's AI earnings assistant offers ideas about how drivers can make more money. Drivers can ask it how to optimize their shifts based on real-time data on airport arrivals, local events, and more. So what it seems to be doing is the information Lyft is giving us in the app, it seems to be condensing it for us. And to a new driver who doesn't know much about the market, this can be a good cheat sheet that helps them figure that out. But how you interpret data is going to be the important part. So the article says Lyft has launched Earnings Assistant, an AI chat tool for drivers seeking to optimize their time on the road. With it, drivers can create plans based on information about things like airport arrivals or local events, announced Jeremy Bird, EVP of Driver Experience at Lyft, in an email to The Verge. The Earnings Assistant feature is in early access and drivers will need to join a waitlist to use it. So I already signed up for the waitlist. Here's what it looks like. I'll drop the waitlist in the chat just for anyone who is interested in signing up, even if you're not interested in using it. Lyft AI waitlist. Once they have access and start planning with the tool, it can offer reminders and drivers can also ask it for recommendations if they aren't sure where to go next. So they have a little example here. I wish I could pause it, but I can't. So this person is saying, hey, create a driver plan today from 3 to 8 p.m. Stay in San Francisco. Start at this address. So at 3 p.m., it says, set an area filter here. Be aware of this 30% turbo that's going to happen. I'm waiting for it to restart. Gives you the times. It throws you reservation options and more. I feel like this is useful if you're new, but anyone who's advanced and understands their market is probably going to be better than this. It's probably going to know not to take scheduled rides because they require you to like wait for like 30 minutes sometimes. It could be really bad, but yay? Question mark. In this hypothetical example, the driver asks for a plan that stays within a 5-hour period in San Francisco and ends at an address in Oakland. It then creates a time-blocked visual that shows where they're going to be and includes a mention of when the driver can expect a turbo time when earnings are higher. That's cool. Giving us reminders of when things are going to happen, that can't be hurtful. It just can't be. Lyft says this builds on other recent rollouts like tweaked Lyft rewards and a driver accomplishment letter feature, another AI-powered tool that creates a personalized document summarizing their work for Lyft, complete with positive feedback from passengers. I'm going to have to check the driver accomplishment letter out for you guys later. I'm not going to do that today, but I have seen it. I do have access to it, and I do have access to the new Lyft rewards. I'm going to just have to make a full video breaking down how it works, and that'll come out soon. Once my daughter's here and I'm not driving as much, I plan on putting out a lot more scripted content out. So we do have some comments. I did read them a little bit earlier. And let's quickly go through what they're saying. So Dave says it actually sounds like a cool idea. Kind of where I sit. Cool for certain people, useless for some others. Unicorn's Rule says, so they just took an easy to use form that would have 4 inputs and changed it to a hard to use natural language UI that requires someone to enter a well formatted request into the app. So I don't think they're replacing what was here before. This is just something in addition to it. If you don't want to use it, I don't believe what they have would disappear. But one of my problems with all of the information they put in the app is that it's too much. They're throwing a bunch of information at you in a way that's not consolidated. And if part of that information is useless to you, now it's just in the way. Like they keep throwing me these scheduled rides in there as suggestions, but I'm not taking them because they cause you to spend too much time with no one in your car. You're not making money, so it's not worth it for me, right? Continues by saying, also, does it work in other languages than English? I can figure out forms in languages that aren't mine pretty easily, but I'd never be able to write out a request. This is going to be an issue, especially when you see how many 8th graders in America can't read and write. I'm just going to chalk this guy off as being a negative Nancy. Someone else says, go figure. Another value Lyft offers that is a complete waste of time. If depending on your skill level, you might see it that way. Just like upfront pay, where according to Lyft, drivers can now know what they make ahead of accepting a ride. Yet if we decline it, our acceptance rate drops. You need to watch my show to learn how to make that not happen. We may see what we get unpaid upfront, but once we see what the rider paid us, blah, blah, blah. This is probably one of the better responses. I can't wait to hear about hallucinations that send drivers to wild goose chases, wasting time, fuel, and money. That's probably a part of what will happen in the early stages. Welcome to AI. But, of course, I'm going to test it, see how it goes, and see how useful it actually is. And I'll report and let you guys know. So make sure you subscribe. Subscribe so you don't miss things. All right, so here we have some words from the CEO about surge pricing. If surge pricing ever goes away, I'm done. I'm for sure, I'm done. I'm gone. Lyft CEO David Risher. Surge pricing is deeply unpopular with customers. Lyft found that surge pricing is deeply unpopular with customers, CEO David Risher said in his annual letter to shareholders released Thursday. Surge pricing, which the rideshare company calls prime time, balances supply and demand by raising prices when demand is high, thereby incentivizing more drivers to get online, according to the letter. The company knew this was unpopular with customers, but the issue was clarified when Risher hit the road as a Lyft driver, as he does every 6 weeks or so, and picked up a rider who said she regularly wakes up early to check rideshare prices, and if they are too high, doesn't take the trip she had planned. Let me just say, shout out to David Risher for actually going out there being a driver. But I want to take my shout out back because don't trade surging. I understand the customers care about these things, but without surge pricing, what are you going to do to incentivize drivers to come out, right? So unless you have a saturated market, which happens from time to time. What else can you do except saturating a market to go away with surge pricing? In fact, the only time I'll be okay if surge pricing disappears is because the market is saturated. Unless you just plan on paying people better so that we don't have to worry about surges to be motivated to come out. So those are the only two scenarios I can be like, okay, I'm not just trying to steal from us. The market is oversaturated and supply and demand. Like, I understand supply and demand. But you could also do this thing where if you pay drivers enough, you'll have enough drivers out there. Right? Maybe. It might not be as simple as that. The company knew this was unpopular with customers, but its issue was clarified when Richard hit the road, as he does every 6 weeks. We just read that. And here's what he says about it. It crystallized in my mind what I'd suspected for a while. It was time to break the PT habit, Richard said in the letter. I don't like those words, but let's see if he has a way to break it in a way that doesn't harm drivers. To help eliminate the need for surge pricing, Lyft added features meant to increase the supply of drivers. Fine. That's okay so far. The company added its earnings commitment in February 2024, ensuring rideshare drivers get 70% of rider payments after fees, and other features in October that provide 5-minute delay pay, out of your way pay, and more transparency, according to the letter. Yeah, that happened, but I don't see what that has to do with surge. By the end of 2024, we can see that these were the right investments. When drivers chose us at a record rates, Risher said in the letter in Q 2024, we had the highest number of driver hours of any quarter in Lyft history. Lyft. Let me tell you something, David. David, talking to you. The reason why, despite the fact that Uber has better surges in my market, that I prefer to drive with Lyft is because of the tools that you guys have. It's not because of the 70% BS that your letter just said. Your stay within an area filter is unmatched right now. That is one of the biggest reasons I stay with Lyft. Also, your ride challenges compared to Uber in my market, perfect. I've only ever gotten one good Uber challenge, and that was this weekend. Yours is still better, kinda. Uber's is better, but because of the tools you give me to accomplish the right challenge, I would rather do it on Lyft. For example, Uber is telling me to do 70 rides. You're telling me to do 140 rides. And I feel like I could do 140 rides in the time it would take me to do 70 rides with Uber without decimating my acceptance rate. It is not because of the 70% split commitment. That is not why I choose Lyft more. I do it because of your surges, your tools, and your challenges. So if you mess with any of those three, we're going to have problems. In another effort to eliminate surge pricing, Lyft accelerated its work on a price lock feature that lets riders lock in a price for the rides they most frequently take per the letter. He found it to be a massive success. So I'm aware that this exists. Let's take a quick look at how it works. With Price Lock, you can earn a cap on price rides for just $2.99 a month. Set your route, request a ride within 1 hour window of your choice, and make your commute work for you. Now, new Price Lock users can try it out for free for 1 month. You can cancel anytime. Cool feature for passengers, as long as, cool feature for passengers, but for drivers, I don't know. Does this affect surges? Do drivers make less because of this? Does Lyft eat that money? Who, in order for the customer to save, either Lyft takes the L or drivers take the L. And I would like to know who's taking the L. So you tap to lock in a price, you know your max price so you can stick to your budget. Save during price surges. So if you're the type of person who knows it surges at 8 and you need to leave at 8:15, you could set this up at 7:15 to lock in your price. If you're a customer, that's great for you. Hopefully, this isn't taking from the pockets of drivers. The number of active passes has increased every month since November 2024, and 70% of price lock riders renew each month. That's a good turnover, honestly, for them. Just speaking that from a business perspective. It's been such a hit that in February of this year, we extended the hours to accommodate late night commutes and other rides. This could be a problem. Like, I will really, David, Mr. Risher, who is taking an L with price lock? Is it you? Is it your company? Or is it me? Who? Risher said that while the data showed that riders were still taking rides during surge pricing, that wasn't the whole story. They were taking those rides begrudgingly and would not recommend Lyft to their friends. That difference doesn't show up on a dashboard, Risher said in his letter. So we got to work reducing PT and cancellations, which increased rider intent over time, even as it improved the conversion rate, which led to record high rise in active riders. So mixed bag there. Sometimes you have to just pay attention and see who these CEOs are talking to. Sometimes they talk to us. Sometimes they talk to customers. Sometimes they talk to the company. Sometimes they talk to stockholders. And today, this letter, it feels like it's for stockholders and a bit of the passengers. So just be aware of that. But also be aware of the general idea that there is a war going on against surge pricing. So if you're not seeing surge pricing as high as it used to be in your market, like I am too, Lyft used to go to $50 with surge pricing. Then they cut it down to $15. Now on average, it's $6. When it's really busy, it'll get to 10, but it doesn't get to 15 very often anymore. And on average, the busy is like $6. So there is an active campaign to get rid of surge, and whether I don't think my market's saturated. I do feel like some of it is artificial, where they're just saying, hey, we don't want to pay this much for surge anymore. And it's not that we have enough drivers here. We just don't want to pay that anymore. And so what we're going to do is just not pay that anymore. And I think that's really what's happening. All right, let's see what's next up. So earlier, I spoke about how the death of rideshare will be due to 1,000 cuts and not just one big thing. It's not going to be tourism dropping off a cliff that becomes a thing. It's not going to be self-driving cars that becomes a thing. It's not going to be oversaturation that becomes a thing. It's not going to be your city council implementing last mile transit in your city that becomes a thing. It's going to be all of these things together, right? Every time something exists that bites into the 5-10% market share of rideshare, collectively, it's what will harm us as drivers. So this is another example. Lyft to start adding licensed taxis to rideshare platform. They worked so hard to kill the taxi industry, and now they're going to work towards bringing them back. Lyft is set to start rolling out a feature that will let riders opt in to be matched with a licensed taxi when that vehicle can get there faster than a rideshare one. The company will launch this feature in St. Louis on May 5th. Bloomberg reported Thursday, saying that the rideshare company confirmed this plan after the feature was discovered within the code of its mobile app. Yo, that's St. Louis. Interesting place to pick. We're always exploring new ways to help riders get to the people and places they love, the company said per the report. We're excited to launch taxis onto our platform in St. Louis, which marks our first taxi integration in the United States. So to all my St. Louis Lyft drivers, you're going to start competing with taxis directly in the app. So that's going to you know what? Let's see. Let's play around. Let's go. I'm going to go to AI. How many taxis are in St. Louis? Estimate. So it's estimating several hundred taxis available in St. Louis. That might not sound like a big number, but imagine several hundred new rideshare drivers just existing in your market starting tomorrow. That's what's going to happen for you guys. And it might not take away from all your earnings, but that plus Waymo plus Tesla plus any of these other things that could happen, it's going to start whittling away at your rideshare income. So it says users who opt to use this feature may be picked up in a taxi when they request certain kinds of rides, and they will be able to pay, tip, and submit a rating for the cab within the Lyft app, just as they can for rideshare vehicles, according to the report. Rival rideshare services Uber has long included taxis in its platform in select markets in the US and overseas, the report said. Uber lets riders specify whether they want a taxi instead of a rideshare vehicle, while Lyft may dispatch either kind of vehicle to those who opt in. So be aware. And David Kaush, his last name, the Uber CEO said, Dara said that he just wants Uber to be a transportation app. He's not so concerned about being a rideshare app. He just wants to be an app that helps things get to destinations, whether it's food or people. And it looks like Lyft is starting to follow in that trend, which is not good for me. Lyft said April 16th that is expanding into Europe with 197 million purchases of Free Now, a German-based company offering a taxi app from BMW and Mercedes-Benz. The company said the acquisition will allow it to fuel growth in more than 150 European cities. Not as concerned about that. Okay, that seems to be the important bits. But again, something to be mindful of. It's the 1,000 deaths that happen, the 1,000 cuts that can cause death, and not just one big explosion. That's really what's happening here. All right, so let's see what we got next. All right, so we're going to start talking about some legal cases from the rideshare community, what's happening, what's going on, who's stealing from who's taking advantage of what. And we're going to start off with this one. Uber wrongfully charged riders downtown congestion fee for months. So we heard about this happening in New York. This one is for Chicago. Uber has been wrongfully overcharging customers with downtown congestion fees since the start of the year. New rules went into effect Jan 6 that allowed rideshare companies to charge a $1.50 congestion surcharge for all rides to and from downtown 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, with the revenue benefiting the city, not drivers. But customers since then have noticed they've been charged the fee outside of those hours. After Block Club Chicago reached out to Uber about the discrepancy, the company is now promising refunds. So I don't know if Uber wasn't aware of this, but shout outs to them for processing those refunds, I guess. But they were doing the same exact thing in New York City. Marty Reagan was one of the customers overcharged when he checked his Uber receipt after a recent late night ride home in the West Loop. He caught the $1.50 congestion surcharge tagged on his fare even though it was after hours. Sounds like a lawsuit. You can't look at all the taxes and fees when you book a ride, Reagan said. It's a money grab at worst. This is a very, very excellent point that stands for both customers and for drivers. You can't look at all the taxes and fees when you book a ride. That's a very good point. I don't know why I never thought about that. Forget upfront pay. These people want upfront pay. I don't know what else I would call it. Upfront customers now want upfront pay. The same way drivers want upfront pay, but their version of upfront pay would be like crazy. They want the taxes and fees to be included before you make a purchase, and it makes more sense for the passengers to see that. As drivers, we're on the move or on the go. I feel like that would be information overload. But I think it'd be fine for a passenger to see where their money is going before they spend their money. I think that's okay. Reagan went back and forth with Uber's customer service chat feature in what he called a moral pursuit to get his money back. The company initially declined to take action on the issue, but after a couple hours worth of effort, he was refunded the charge without explanation. Good on him. I don't have the patience for this morality for $1.50. Not me, but I'm glad there are people out there who are like that because they make society a better place. It's just not me. Others have been improperly charged the congestion fee by Uber. Brock Club found a review of the receipts showed the company has been routinely adding the $1.50 charge on downtown rides outside of the surcharge time window. In response to a Brock Club inquiry, an Uber spokesperson confirmed the company had mistakenly charged the congestion fee on rides after 10 p.m. since early January, when the city expanded the downtown congestion surcharge to weekends and reduced its cost by 25 cents. Uber is now actively identifying all affected customers and will issue refunds accordingly. The surcharge fees, including the overcharges, were collected by Uber and paid to the city in accordance with rideshare regulators, Gold said. The full scope of how many customers were wrongfully hit with the surcharge or how much was overcharged is not known. Uber and city officials did not immediately answer related questions. But so the scary part here is, did Uber hand this money over to the government and the government not know what was happening? That's where I'm kind of interested in. Who has this money? So it says Uber is issuing the refund, but is that refund coming through the state? Or the city? Does the city get to keep that money? It's interesting to see how this plays out. A spokesperson with the City Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Department also did not answer questions regarding if it was aware Uber was overcharging customers or why. They can answer that. They should answer that. The downtown surcharge tax, intended to battle congestion during high traffic hours in an extensive area roughly between North Avenue and Roosevelt Road, defined as the city's downtown zone, was passed in 2020. All right, we don't need that information, but I'm gonna keep an eye on this. It could end here, right? This could just be the end of the story. But if something pops up with this again, we'll check it out, because I am curious who has the money, who's going to pay for it. I think this should be turned into a lawsuit. It probably will. Honestly, these lawyers out here are money hungry. Well, let's move on to the next story. All right, so there's a new bill. Oh man, oof, the story got deleted. It was about protections for Uber and Lyft drivers. Protections for Uber and Lyft drivers. Oregon. I don't know what happened, but that story got deleted. All right, so we're not going to cover that story today. All right, so this one's a pretty big one that's ongoing. Let me double check to make sure that there hasn't been any updates to this case. This one is very similar to what was happening in Minneapolis. Okay, so no major updates, so we'll just read what we have. I'm gonna find a better source. Give me a second. So this one is called "Is Uber Leaving Colorado? What You Need to Know About Proposal That Prompted the Threat." Uber is threatening to pull out of Colorado if a bill instituting new safety regulations on rideshare companies is enacted as written. House Bill 1291, which would enshrine these changes, passed by a veto-proof 59-6 majority in the House earlier this month. The state Senate is taking up the bill this week at the General Assembly session scheduled to end May 7th. The proposed changes include audio and video recording of all trips, with the rideshare companies providing the equipment for drivers. Ooh, hold on. Hold on. Or, of course, I'm going to read all of those in a second. That was rough. A lot has changed since I last read this Colorado rideshare bill thing. Let me say something. There are times where I'm the villain and it seems like I'm protecting Uber and Lyft. And I spent a lot of time being the villain during the Minneapolis pay increase discussion. And I want to make it clear. There's a difference between what I want to happen and what I think will happen. So the difference between what I think is like reasonable and unreasonable. Just because I am a driver doesn't mean I think that everything the drivers ask for is reasonable. And I think that an important part of getting what you want is by being reasonable. Now, during the Minneapolis situation, I believed that artificially increasing the pay in a way that doesn't make sense, or by being unreasonable, would lead to drivers making less money overall. That's exactly what happened. I had a lot of fights and debates with people who thought I was a shill, thought I was just supporting Uber and Lyft, when it wasn't the case. I just understood economics. I understood supply and demand. And it turns out I was right. Not because I wanted to be right, because I'm mapping cause and effect. I'm looking at, hey, this is what happens when you do this, and this is the outcome that's likely to happen. And of course, it's an educated guess. I might be wrong eventually, sometime. But I just want to throw that out there. I want to revisit my track record that there are times when people thought I was the enemy because I was being realistic about, hold on, I gotta ban someone. Can I ban from here? Ban user. All right, sorry, I have to ban someone spamming in the chat. But so yeah, I just want to make it clear. I already have a very strong feeling that I'm about to identify some unreasonable things in this bill, and we're gonna talk about it. So an audio and video recording of all trips with the rideshare companies providing the equipment for drivers. They lost me here. Providing the equipment for drivers. Now, I will say Uber did put out something where you can record from your phone. That's cool. I think that's pretty dope. But I don't think Uber and Lyft should be responsible for providing the equipment for drivers. We are 1099. We're not employees. And I do believe that every driver should have a dash cam, but I don't believe it needs to be provided by Uber and Lyft. The next change is a ban on drivers offering or providing snacks or water to passengers. What the hell? Why do they want to ban drivers offering provisions to passengers? Who wrote this bill? Next, mandatory safety screenings of drivers every 6 months. That's fine, but whatever. I'm whatever on that. I'm not against that. I'm not for it. As a driver, it seems to be more of a hassle, but for passengers, it'd be safer for them. Fine, whatever. More stringent verification that the driver is actually the person the account belongs to. Fine. Why is Uber threatening to leave Colorado? In an April 23rd email to riders, Uber said the conditions would make it impossible to operate in the state. Specifically, it called the recording requirement an invasion of riders' privacy and said the prohibition on food and drink would create unworkable conditions with impractical requirements and predicted the whole package would lead to frivolous lawsuits that would drive up costs. I don't think he's going to do all of that, but I do agree, it's like, how is Uber supposed to enforce people not having snacks and giving them to passengers. That's kind of a weird one. It's like I feel like whoever wrote this bill doesn't take Uber or Lyft, and they didn't consult with anyone. I thought this was going to be about the transparency, but it's not even about that. Uber says we believe there's a better way to ensure safety and accessibility without sacrificing your privacy or forcing Uber out of the state. And we're ready to find a middle ground, the email said. I feel like Uber's being a little bit of a baby here. Like, I feel like the middle ground is lost, and people are just operating on these fringes, and I don't think it needs to be this serious. Why are new safety rules for Uber being proposed in Colorado? State Rep Jenny Wilford introduced the bill in January, has said rideshare companies need to do more to protect passengers. She sued Lyft in January, alleging she was sexually assaulted by a driver using someone else's account in 2024. And that's bad. That needs to be dealt with. But snacks, I don't see how snacks led to that. In a statement posted to her Instagram account on April 24th, Wilford called Uber's threat to leave Colorado a cynical and disheartening move by a multi-billion-dollar company to turn their back on survivors rather than implement real safety measures, like banning snacks. Wilford said legislators have worked with Uber in good faith for months and accepted many of their amendment requests, including a full write-up of the bill. So from this perspective, I will say I understand why she wants Uber to provide recording equipment, right? I get that. From the safety of the passenger, I get that, right? And I know I made a couple jokes already about the snacks, but I still don't understand the snacks part. So, given the gravity of these accusations, I'm not going to make jokes about that anymore. I'm just going to say I don't understand it, and I'm going to move on. Has Uber threatened to stop its service in other areas? I don't really care about that. All right, so that's... I know Colorado has a transparency bill being thrown around. I thought that was what this would be about. And I'm actually shocked that that's not what it's about. In Colorado, Uber is facing legal challenges over new laws aimed at increasing transparency for rideshare drivers and passengers. These laws, Senate Bill 24075 and House Bill 2411129, require Uber to disclose detailed fare breakdowns, including the total amount paid by the rider, the amount the driver receives, and the tip amount on a single screen. Additionally, they mandate the disclosure of the total distance and time a ride is expected to cover before a driver accepts it. Generally speaking, I'm on board with the Colorado transparency bill. There are a couple things that are a little weird in there, but for the most part, I'm on board with this. So it's interesting to see Colorado have something else that's kind of like I did not see coming. So we'll definitely keep up with that, and we'll see what's happening elsewhere. So this one, I think it's California based. It's about some place called, hold on. Market Street in California. So this is the first time I'm hearing about it. If you're in California, you know more about this, chime in. Let's talk about it. It says Uber threatens to sue San Francisco over Waymo access to Market Street. I guess this is Market Street. It's a nice looking bus. Look at his sandals. Those are not good looking. Uber is threatening to sue San Francisco after Mayor Daniel Lurie announced that Waymo robotaxis would be given near exclusive access to Market Street according to records obtained by the Standard. Okay. This ties into what I said earlier in the podcast about deaths by 1,000 cuts when it comes to rideshare. I'm going to assume Market Street is very busy and that Uber and Lyft drivers aren't allowed to drive on there to pick up people. So I'm assuming that passengers have to walk to a pickup location that's away from Market Street in order to be picked up. This probably helps a lot with congestion. I can see how it's confusing for people who don't live there, but for the average person who goes there regularly, who knows they need to go to this area to be picked up, it probably works pretty well. Probably helps traffic flow a lot easier too. What do you think will happen, especially if this is an area in town where people like to drink? If people have to choose between ordering a Waymo, a self-driving car, or walking to somewhere to get into a car with a human. We already know currently in what state is that? Arizona. You can get a human driver or a self-driving Waymo into Uber app. And Uber said 50% of the time, I'm not making that up, 50% of the time, people pick the self-driving car. And that's when the options are the same. Here, it looks like Waymo is able to pick people up somewhere where human drivers don't have access to. That is going to cut into the earnings of anyone who typically picks up in that area. It's going to cut into your surges, and it's going to be a problem unless you unite with Uber and sue California. Man, it's so weird how sometimes Uber is the problem, and sometimes you need Uber to be the solution when you're a driver. Uber is threatening to sue San Francisco after Mayor Daniel Lurie announced that Waymo robotaxis would be given near exclusive access to Market Street, according to records obtained by The Standard. The mayor's April 10 announcement of the Waymo deal was framed as a way to revitalize the downtown core, which has been slow to recover from the pandemic. Thousands of workers have not returned to office, and Market Street has become a ghost town during the evenings and weekends after being closed to the private vehicles just weeks before the 2020 shutdown. Thousands of workers have not returned to offices. Okay, so it doesn't look like it's a bar area. And Market Street has become a ghost town during the evenings and weekends after being closed to private vehicles just weeks before the 2020 shutdown. So interesting. Okay. But Lurie may have underestimated how upset Uber, Lyft, the bicyclists. But Lurie may have been underestimating how upset Uber, Lyft, the bicyclists, why can't I say this word? The people who ride bikes, the bicyclist community, and Safety Street advocates would be with this decision to hand Waymo the keys to Market Street. Stakeholders were given a heads up less than a day before the deal was announced. Uber officials learned that morning that the mayor's office had quietly worked out an exclusive deal with the robotaxi company to provide rides on the city's historic downtown thoroughfare, which has been restricted to muni buses and streetcars, commercial loading vehicles, and taxis. Wait, hold on. So Uber and Lyft drivers can't go there, but taxis can? Come on. And just now it's a problem? Like, this sounds like it has already been a problem. I feel like Uber and Lyft drivers should be allowed. If you're gonna allow taxis, you gotta allow Uber and Lyft drivers. I'm sorry. A senior vice president of communications and public policy for Uber told Lurie in an April 10 letter that his decision to permit Waymo to operate robotaxis on Market Street while prohibiting Uber drivers was legally unacceptable, economically harmful, and fundamentally unfair. For more than 4 years, Uber has dutifully respected the Market Street restrictions, so we are surprised that there has been no transparency around the rationale for suddenly carving out an exception for one company. You know what the reasoning for this probably is? The rationale? Probably. It's probably money. Unless the city reconsiders opening Market Street to Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare companies, she added, Uber will have no choice but to explore legal action alongside the 60,000 drivers who served San Francisco over the past year. Look at Uber calling on the drivers to come and help them out of something that they need the drivers to help them with while taking advantage of them. A spokesperson for the mayor issued a statement saying that the city is exploring options to revitalize downtown. Market Street has the potential to help power a downtown recovery, but there simply aren't enough people going there. While Waymo conducts mapping as permitted under existing law, we'll continue to look at ways to bring people back to market so our incredibly city has an equally incredible downtown. So it looks like this area of downtown is like corporate based, and I don't understand. I'm trying to draw these connections on why the government feels like self-driving cars need access to it, and that would help it become popular again. I'm struggling to see why that frame of thinking wouldn't extend to Uber and Lyft drivers. While the mayor's office did little outreach until just before its announcement, Lori and staff quickly launched into damage control. The mayor had a conversation with Uber CEO a day after the announcement, according to an email sent by the company, the head of policy. The mayor's policy chief in charge of economic issues Thursday at City Hall, according to calendars obtained through Public Records Act. Okay, so it's interesting. Waymo has a leg up right now on Uber on this street for some reason, and I guess we're just gonna have to wait until Uber sues someone or until we get an update. Okay, all right. So the government actually gave a reason, right? It says Lori's team has argued that Waymos were prioritized in part because the vehicles are safer than human drivers. Shots fired. But the mayor and his staff have close ties to Ruth Porat, president and chief investment officer of Alphabet, which owns the robotaxi company. Officials close to the mayor have argued that Waymo robotaxis have commercial license plates, which makes the vehicle eligible for operations on Market Street under the 2020 plan. Okay, so this is why taxis can go, but Uber and Lyft drivers can't. Okay, Uber and Lyft are mostly operated by people driving their own cars. However, Uber also partners with taxis, and the company's Uber Black offerings are classified as commercial vehicles. This double standard undermines not only the rule of law, but the city's own credibility and sends troubling messages that City Hall will be in the business of handpicking winners. Ooh, this is getting spicy. Robin Palm, the founder of Kids Safe SF, which has opposed reopening Market Street to more cars, said the mayor's office opened a can of worms with his Waymo announcement. Market Street is now used mainly as a public transport hub for buses and streetcars. The Municipal Transportation Agency is facing a severe financial cliff, and it's unclear how increased vehicle traffic to Market Street might affect muni ridership. Listen. You can't generate enough money to maintain your services that has nothing to do with anybody else around you. Nothing. So I don't care. I don't really care. We know everybody is focused on downtown recovery, and we want that too. But adding cars back to Market Street is not going to solve our economic problems. It's going to create new problems. If these companies get their way, that could be a real loss for pedestrian safety and public transit support. Listen. If people aren't using your products, and the only way to get them to use your products is to handicap other products, then you don't have a good product. Simple. That's it. That's all I got to say. But man, okay. I'm glad I finished reading this article because I get it. And I'm very interested in seeing where this goes. If you're from San Francisco, what do you think about this? Like, where do you sit on this? If you're a driver, is this somewhere where you want access to drive? Do you think it's unfair that because you don't have a business license plate that you can't drive on the street? Are you worried that Waymos are allowed to have access to parts of the city that you're not allowed to have access to part of the city? Are you concerned that the government is making decisions because they believe that self-driving cars are safer than human-driven cars, which is true. Statistically, it's true. So you let me know what your thoughts are on that. Let's see what we got next. All right, so I'm going to check in with the comments, actually. I didn't realize people were leaving comments. All right, so let's check in with the poll first. It says, is it possible to complete 210 weekend ride challenge? 67% said no. I don't blame you for believing that. All right, so Preston says 30 rides a day. That's not 30 rides a day, bro. You're thinking it's over a week, which would be 7 days. 7 times 30 would be 210. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday to do 210 rides. That's 70 rides a day. So you're probably one of the people who picked yes, it's possible, but I'm just gonna assume it's because he didn't understand what the parameters really were. Surge Sniper says, hi, what's up? I love your name. It's a good name. Surge Sniper, like it. Lynn says, hi from NC. Guys, if you were watching earlier in the chat, Lynn is one of the co-hosts from the Drivers Coast to Coast, where we played a snippet of it. We posted the link earlier in chat. I don't know if it made it over here. I don't think it did. I'm using like a new chat feature and it's not working. So we're gonna have to figure out why it's not working. Surge Sniper says Uber is willing to lose profits on short trips because they always win them back on long trips, especially the nature hikes. I agree. I'm gonna overall agree with that. IDC says Lyft throws crap out to get you to fall for it, knowing you ain't getting it. Then throttle rides on Sunday to make sure you don't hit it. I don't agree with that in totality. I don't know if you were here at the beginning of the live stream where I said I'm always focused on the things that I have control over instead of focusing on the externals. So if I'm you and I've acknowledged that Sunday is slower and it's harder to finish challenges, then it is on you to make sure you do bulk of your challenges on Friday and Saturday. Then that has been my strategy. My strategy has been to wake up and start driving at 5 a.m., which is when the day starts on the East Coast for Lyft. Drive 12 hours, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., take a 6-hour break, jump back on, and finish out the day. If I do majority of my rides on Friday, that gives me more confidence that I can hit it on Saturday and Sunday. There's been a time where I've hit a whole challenge just by working Friday and Saturday. So this is the strategy I use on the start of challenges. So if it's Monday, where the Monday is the start of the challenge, I'm going hard on that Monday. And then that lets me know how hard I need to go Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I try to finish everything as early in the week as possible. So if you want to believe that there's throttling happening, which could very well be the case, then you need to put yourself in a position to get majority of it done so that even if you are throttled, you can still get it done. That's what I got to say. All right, so let's see what's up next. I gotta go soon because I'm gonna actually try to do that 210 ride challenge. So I do need to like eat and sleep and stuff. So I'm just looking through to make sure I'm giving you guys. I have a ton of topics I can go through. We got a bunch of self-driving stuff. I'm gonna save the self-driving until the next podcast. I think let's focus in on the economy. It's gonna get a little political, but as I said, you might not have seen it in the beginning of the stream. This is not about picking sides. This is about cause and effect. This is about analyzing what decisions were made in the White House and how it affects us as drivers. My goal is to convince you guys that Uber and Lyft is a stepping stone to something better. For me, it's a stepping stone into a debt-free life where I can go and try to become a full-time YouTuber. For you, you might have other goals, but no matter what those goals are, I want you to use Uber and Lyft as a stepping stone to get there. And as we're building those steps, there are things that happen that make it harder to build the steps. Sometimes it's from Uber, sometimes it's personal life, sometimes it's the White House. So right now, I want to zoom in on the economy. Rideshare is part of the economy is part of rideshare. And it would feel dishonest of me to just get on here, talk about how much money I'm making, talk about the battles I'm going through and making that money without talking about how politics play a role into it, because it does. I'm sorry it does, but it does. So let's see what the first article we have here. I got an ad. Give me a second. trying to get around this paywall. All right, here we go. Uber is recession resistant and might cost users less if a downturn comes, says the CEO. If you have been around long enough, and let's say through COVID, after COVID, there was a downturn with Uber, and that was because there were a bunch of layoffs that happened because people overhired throughout COVID. But as people were going back to work, the economy changed. During the downturn, I found that people use Uber and Lyft, or even food delivery. And it might not be a long-term thing. It might be something they use while they're in transition, while they use it as a stepping stone until their next job. And I think I've experienced that about twice, where I've kind of seen the economy slump a little, and then it's a little more oversaturated. So when the CEO of Uber is saying that Uber is recession resistant, he's referring to for the company and for the customers, not for the drivers. It is harder to make money when unemployment increases. So let's read this article and see what our lovely CEO has to say. Your ride to the airport on Friday night dinner delivered through Uber might cost less if an economic downturn arrives, according to its CEO. If the economy enters a recession, more people could sign up to drive and deliver for Uber, the CEO said. If there is more unemployment, the cost of Uber will come down because to some extent, the cost of labor comes down. Dara said that Uber tends to be recession resistant since many people still want groceries, restaurant delivery, rides around town, and other everyday use cases, even if they cut back spending in other areas. And I find that to be true. There's a college in town, and just last night, a group of passengers were talking about how they're struggling. They don't have money, and not because of the economy, because they're college students, and how they almost didn't have enough money on their card for this ride, or enough money on the card to order alcohol. Yet here they are in my car going places. So I tend to agree that, even when times are hard, people might go out less. But I think because times are hard, they want to go out more, even if they financially can't. So it says you may put off going on vacation in Europe this summer, but you're still going to treat your family to a nice dinner, he said. We specialize in small treats, not big treats. And I agree with him there, unfortunately. Right? So an example of how I agree with what's being said, but I wouldn't practice what's being said. Consumers have turned to said small treats when the economy and their income have deteriorated in the past, right? And when I perceive things and how things will happen as a result of economic shifts, it's because I'm looking at, hey, how did people react in the past? And I'm using that to create a vision of the future. Lipstick sales, for instance, rose during the you went way back. Lipstick sales, for instance, rose during the 2001 recession as some shoppers looked to make up as an affordable luxury, even as they avoided larger purchases. Economists, executives, and others worried that a recession could be sparked this year by President Donald Trump's tariffs. Many retailers and consumer brands have said that they will pass the cost of the tariffs to shoppers, leading to higher prices on store shelves and online after years of post-pandemic inflation. While shoppers pulled back spending in many areas last year, many did keep paying to have what they bought delivered through services including DoorDash, Instacart, and Uber Eats, earning reports at the time show. And that's true. A lot of people, and there are other factors that need to be considered, but generally speaking, this is true. Getting work on Uber and other gig apps might not be as easy for laid-off workers and others in a recession, though. Current gig workers have told Business Insider that many apps are already saturated with people looking to claim work, and that some even have waitlists for prospect independent contractors. No. So that is true. I know Spark has a long waitlist, and something I'm trying to practice doing right now is, I know I'm in busy season right now for my market. I know it's good right now, but I'm also aware that I pay a little more attention to what's happening so that I can have the foresight as a business owner to make better decisions. And I expect hard times to come. Right now, our trade is being shifted, right? And this isn't about whether you agree with it or disagree with it. The tariffs are shifting how trade works, and a lot of the ports are empty. That means port workers will be out of a job soon, right? If there's no containers to be picked up, they don't get called into work. And if there are no containers to be picked up, truck drivers don't have work. That's going to cause more unemployment, whether temporary or not. But that's the next stage. And I know I said this months ago because I saw this happening months ago. But sometimes people don't listen until they see it for themselves. And you're going to start seeing it. It's going to be super obvious. Right now, something I'm doing is I'm just stacking money. I'm trying to force myself to work when I don't need to work because I don't know what the future will look like. And I'd rather have too much money than not enough, right? And I'm always trying to encourage you guys to pay off your debts, save some money, and start looking for your exit route because it takes a long time to transition from something else to something else. And when even that's been the message I've always tried to spread for years now since I've started my YouTube channel. I never thought, or how can I best say this? When I was giving you advice on the aspect that it takes a long time to transition, that was under the guise of self-driving cars are coming for us. It's getting harder to make money, right? I didn't think a president would come in and make decisions that didn't have to be made that is going to have like a direct impact on that. So it's just whatever I was telling you to prepare for, I feel like you need to go harder to prepare for it now, even if it's just to be safe, right? I always give that clause. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, or else I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying. But even if I'm wrong, I'd rather you have money and me be wrong than me be right and you not have listened to me and have nothing. I want everyone just to get into a habit of always being prepared, even when you don't know what you need to prepare for. But we do have something that we should be preparing for. And we're going to see more and more of it as I work my way through these articles. All right, so let's move on to the next article. This one isn't really an article. This is a conversation I thought was interesting over on Twitter. You should definitely follow me. But this Miami is the number 2 market for tourism, and there seems to be a trend where tourism is falling off a cliff. One, because of the global economic state, and then 2, because of the ever-changing nature of how we're handling people coming to our country legally. Like I'm not talking about legal immigrants. I'm note there has been a change in how we operate visitors who are just visiting and making it harder. There have been countries that have changed their travel guidance. Like every country typically rates other countries on whether you should go there or not, right? It's usually like a scale. And we have received not favorable guidance from other countries. So Black Card Trent says, it's been absolutely devastating to this market over the last month. Me and my buddy talk about it daily. I've never seen anything like it in my 4 years of driving here. It literally was like a switch was flipped on. I don't understand if they're giving it to the first person hit or if they're giving it to whatever. I just don't understand the method to the madness. My buddy has an 88% acceptance rate, and it doesn't matter. He's not getting anything. I have a 34% acceptance rate. I tried to be the first person. Most of the time, I can't even get it on my screen. It's already gone. We are playing into some conspiracies that is actually trying to get us to bump ourselves down to comfort and get off of Premiere only. One thing it has done is condition us to not even look at the trip, just hit accept because you don't have time to look at it. So someone says, Trump destroyed tourism down here. For example, a lot of foreigners used to be able to stay here up to 6 months, but it has changed to 30 days without fingerprints in the forms. So they've made it, they're adding extra steps if you want to stay here for a longer period of time. And that might turn people off from coming, period. I'm talking tourists that spend money, not migrants. Usually they return before or after this weekend. Usually there is a mass exodus of snowbirds that happened about the end of March because of all people being stopped at customs. So Black Card Trent response says, I never really thought of that. It did seem like a lot of people left early. I don't think we get as many tourists up here in Palm Beach as you do now. There are even a lot of snowbirds started leaving earlier this year. I have about 300 private clients, and I would say a third. And Michelle King says, same in Arizona. It has not been normal at all. So these are anecdotal, but there is like actual information that we can pair with this, and I'm gonna look for it right now. I don't even think I have it in my notes. Let's see. Ooh, so this is one for Vegas, which is somewhere I'm interested in living. So when it comes to like analyzing trends, my go-to has been, where do these trends show up first, and then deciding, do I expect these trends to continue elsewhere, right? So that was a trend for Miami, which does have a lot of tourists, but another place which has a lot of tourism is Vegas. And Vegas seems to be having a similar issue. And this is worrisome for me because this is somewhere I'm planning on living, right? Oh man, that's loud. Okay, so we're not gonna watch that video. It's too loud. Right, so this article says, Las Vegas is a big city because of tourism. However, lately, the driving force behind our economy has been slowing down. The latest tourism numbers from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority are showing declines across the board. The big number we're looking at is a 7.8% drop in the overall visitors to Vegas. Las Vegas airport traffic is down 4%, and gaming wins are down by 1.75% in Clark County. Interestingly, all of those gaming revenue losses are on the Strip. Everywhere else in the Valley, like downtown, North Las Vegas, and Boulder Strip, are seeing revenues increase. Another notable piece of the report is that the convention attendance is up by 10%. That's helped a lot by a huge healthcare conference just held here as part of a rotation of cities, which means we won't be getting that bump next year. A lot of our visitors are here for conventions, meaning they're all here for work. That makes up 15% of all visitors. Since that is where we saw the only increase over the last year, it means the share people actually choosing to come to Vegas to visit outside of work is even lower than you might think when looking at the 8% decrease. In its summary, the report LVCVA specifically points out President Donald Trump's tariffs as part of the reason why this past March was slower than last year. An example of that many are noticing across the Valley is fewer Canadian visiting. And I saw another article like this. I don't have it on my list, but Boston Tourism Canada. Let's go to news. So, I mean, I'll just read some of the headlines that are just popping up. Boston was expecting record internal tourism in 2025. That's now been derailed. As Canadian tourism plummets, Vermont braces for slow summer season on Lake Champlain. Boston braces for economic hit as Canadian visitors reconsider travel plans. And of course, I think it's important to actually look at the articles because headlines could be deceiving. You can write a headline with that without having any substantial stats to back it up. So let's look at what they're saying. The local tourism industry was gearing up for a banner 2025. The year international travel was expected to surpass pre-COVID records. That's good. It means we had some return to normalcy. But as President Trump marks Liberation Day, today those record-setting expectations have gone by the wayside. As Amy Stockwell reports, local travel experts say Trump's promise to put tariffs on or even annex countries that are not only the United States' top allies, but also key tourism markets have led to a drop in projected 2025 international travel to Boston, especially from Canada. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here and say what's wrong or what's right. You can have your own opinion on that. That's not what this show is for. This show is cause and effect. If tourism is down, how does that affect rideshare? By the numbers, overall, Boston attracts about 20 million visitors a year. Roughly 3 million are international, including what was expected to be a record 860,000 Canadians in 2025, according to Meet Boston, the region's tourism bureau. However, Meet Boston spokesperson Dave O'Donnell says they're lowering those estimates based on travel data and conversations with partners in the tourism industry. International visits to the US are now expected to drop 10%, 9.4%. in 2025, while visitors from Canada are projected to fall 20.2%. And this ties back to what I said earlier in this podcast. Rideshare is rarely an explosion that hurts our pockets. It's usually 1,000 cuts that leads us to bleed out over time that makes rideshare not worth it. So I'm not going to say that tourism alone, people not coming from Canada alone in a place like Boston or Miami, is going to make it so like rideshare isn't worth it. It's going to be that on top of all these other reasons that we've always been saying, man, this is making my income lower, whether it's self-driving cars, whether it's upfront pay, whether it's how Uber and Lyft might change something in the algorithm, whether it's tourism, whether it's economic uncertainty. It's a group of these things that will ultimately add up to the destruction of rideshare, in my opinion. And destruction might be a strong word here, but the ever lasting battle of a downward trajectory in how we're getting paid. That's probably a more accurate, less scary way to say it. But year over year, typically speaking, you either have to try harder to make the same amount of money or do what you've always done and make less money. It's a downward trajectory. Why it matters. While the change amounts to a small slice of Boston's overall tourism volume, it is a disproportionate impact. International visitors tend to stay longer and spend more money. That's bad news for local hotels, restaurant, cultural venues, and other travel adjacent industries like Uber and Lyft. O'Donnell said a couple international business meetings planned in Massachusetts have also been canceled, though he declined to share the specifics. What they're doing about it. O'Donnell's team is working to message Boston as a welcome, inclusive destination via their reps in Europe, while they look for a partner in Canada to try to highlight the country's historical ties and shared culture with New England. We want to differentiate this region from some of our other rhetoric that's happening. And I think that's a good idea. I think historically and geopolitically, we already are, but obviously these trends are impacting the country as a whole. It doesn't matter who you are. Something I've been doing is when I have people from not America in my car, I thank them for coming. You know, I say, hey, despite what's going on, I appreciate you for coming to Charleston. And they usually like that, you know? And I would encourage you guys to do it too. I'm not going to say it's going to make a major difference, but word of mouth is a major way people decide to go somewhere. They choose to do something. And if you show that, like, there's a difference between what the leader of a country is doing versus what the workers of Uber and Lyft are doing, it might help swing people. I don't know. Maybe I'm being unrealistic, but you know, I thank them. It could be something small. It could be totally useless gesture, but you know, I want their money. I want them to tip me, so I speak up. I'm just joking. Kind of joking. Meanwhile, the state's largest business group, the Associated Industries of Massachusetts, says the additional tariffs Trump plans to announce today will hurt the local economy. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, right? But you guys get it. I think you guys get the point here when it comes to tourism. Tourism is dropping in America. I'm going to show you a graph just to put the icing on the cake. Actually, I shared it on my Twitter recently. I'll just go over there and show you guys. Twitter, X, whatever. So if you want to follow me over on Twitter, it's FR Millionaires. I'm going to put it in chat. Twitter. So this is a chart. It shows the change based off of location. I don't feel like enough people in the rideshare space are talking about tourism, and there's been some significant changes, and I expect these changes to get worse before they get better, if they get better. And you might believe this is for good reasons. You might believe this is for bad reasons. Again, not what we're here to discuss. We are just discussing that it is happening and how it could affect rideshare or will affect rideshare. And once it affects rideshare, what we can do to make it affect us less. That's going to be the evolution of this conversation. We're just at the how this is affecting or might affect rideshare. So let's see what's next from the economy banner. So this one is if you have student loans, this is for you. I have student loans. So it's definitely something you need to be aware of. This ad is so big. Oh my God, there's so many ads. All right, oh, this is terrible. I'm gonna find a different source. Okay. Oh, ads are so bad. So bad. Is this how you guys feel when you're watching YouTube? It's all these ads. Okay. So I believe that if you have debt, you owe someone money, you should pay for it. Right? That's generally how I feel. Right now, the current administration is going to get rid of some of the debt repayment plans that we've had the pleasure of having since COVID. And, you know, I think that those debt relief plans, they were good for a time. I do believe that eventually they should go away, and they have gone away. I don't think right now is the best time to have done it, but they're gone. I have student loans, so this applies to me. Not all of you do. Shout outs to you guys. And to those who don't have student loans, who plan to go to college, do not get student loans. This is going to be a great example of why you shouldn't. But just because I think people should be paying their student loans doesn't mean that I don't want to offer them some insight and advice to paying them off, because the administration is talking about garnishing wages in order to collect student loans. And I don't want that for you guys, right? So, well, I haven't read this article, so hopefully it's actually helpful. But it says 2 ways to get out of student loan default before your wages get garnished. The Department of Education will restart collections of defaulted student loans on May 5th, and experts say defaulted borrowers should take action now to get back into good standing. I agree, obviously. The 5 million borrowers who are in default could have their wages garnished if they can't get back into good standing, according to the Department of Education. This means money would be withheld from borrowers' paychecks, tax refunds, and Social Security benefits to pay what they owe. Experts say there are 2 main ways for borrowers with defaulted loans to get into good standings and avoid wage garnishments. Borrowers should start educating themselves about consolidation and rehabilitation and consider reaching out now rather than wait for communication. You can get started on these processes now if you log into your studentaid.gov. They can see who they need to contract to get the process rolling. Now, luckily for me, and I've been preaching this for years now, I've been on a debt-free journey. Paid off cars. Wife paid off her car. We paid off the credit cards. We stopped using credit cards. The only thing we have left is the student loans, and I'll have those paid off sometime this year. And I'm thankful that despite the fact that Biden ran on the idea that he was going to get rid of everyone's student loans, I didn't sit around and wait for that to happen, because guess what? It didn't happen, right? Terrible. Disappointing. He tried, but he failed, largely speaking. And I disagree with it from an economic perspective, like macroeconomic. I would have loved it if it happened, but I wasn't. I'm trying to put myself in a position to where I'm not relying on the government for anything, right? That's step one. Step two is I'm trying to put myself in a position to where no matter what the government decides to do, it won't have a financial impact on me because I'm just super self-efficient. That's the goal. So I'm just saying, even though I still have the debt, you know, I'm gonna pay it back because I borrowed it. And I'm happy that I was already on the process of doing that, considering what's now happening. And I want you guys to be there too. It's like I want you guys to start thinking about this stuff and just stop pushing it off before it's too late. Both loan consolidation, which I'm not a fan of loan consolidation, both loan consolidation and rehabilitation can only be done once. So borrowers need to understand which option is best for their circumstances before starting the process. What I think you guys should actually do is figure out what your monthly payment would be and start making room in your budget to start paying that off. And don't just focus on paying off the minimums. If you just pay your minimums, you'll be paying this loan off forever. You need to start cutting into the principal. One way to get a loan out of default is to apply for student loan consolidation. This process pays off multiple student loans to combine them into a single loan, bringing the borrower out of default. I did that once. So most student loans would be like a bunch of different loans, and then you can consolidate into one. Typically, they'll give you an average of the interest rate. If you do it through your service loan provider, it's not terrible, but not a huge fan. A borrower must sign up for an income-driven repayment plan or make 3 consecutive voluntary on-time full monthly payments on the defaulted loan to consolidate. However, the accrued interest is added to the balance once the loan is consolidated. So that means your interest becomes part of your dang, I just had that word in my head. Part of your principal. Additionally, while a borrower is brought out of the default, the record of the default and the late payments before it will still remain on their credit report. So the administration is talking about adding these defaults to your credit report too. Loan rehabilitation, which is the second option, can take longer than consolidation, but it takes the defaulted loan off a borrower's credit report and does not add accrued interest to the balance. The rehabilitated loan can get back into good standing. A borrower must agree to take and make 9 voluntary, reasonable, and affordable monthly payments over the consecutive months as determined by their loan servicer. This sounds like what I would do if I was struggling. It'd be a little harder, but it doesn't add the interest to the principal. So, short little article. This is scary in that, again, I agree that people should pay for what they borrow, but we're doing it in a time where other economic hardships are being caused. So it's like we're pulling out all the Jenga all at once, right? And I might agree with pulling out the Jenga over time. I just think it's happening all at once, very fast, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned for you guys. You're my community. You guys come here because you want to know how to maximize your income, or you want to know how to save more money, make more money. Most of us aren't doing Lyft because it's the thing that we want to do for the rest of our lives. It's the thing that we fell into, and we realize that we can use it as a tool, our financial tool. But I want you guys to use these tools to build a house that insulates you from other people. I hate the idea that other people have a financial say in my life at the stroke of a pen. And I'm doing my best to insulate myself from that. And I want you guys to be insulated from that too. And that's the truth. There's a lot of self-driving things in here that I want to talk about. Some car buying advice that I really want to get to. But we're going to have to save that for next week. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast channel. If you weren't able to see the whole of this podcast, I usually chop them up and I add it to the podcast channel. It's in the description. Let me show you. Chop them up and I add it to the. So yeah, it's in the description here. My If you want the spreadsheet that I used early in this video, it's right here. The podcast channel is here. And go check it out. Go subscribe. Hey, look, it's me watching me. But anyways, I'll catch you guys later. I'm going to have to rest up, eat some dinner. And I'm actually going to try to accomplish this 210 ride challenge. So if you want to make sure you don't miss out on that, I'll probably put out a video as soon as I can once I'm actually done. But until then, it was fun. I'll catch you guys later. Make sure you like this. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. I need that from you guys. Thank you.